In the cable-resisted deadlift level 2 exercise, you'll now be doing the deadlift with a barbell, using all those tremendous amount of details you learned in level 1. So let's set the bar down, Matt. And quite quickly, I'm going to do this explanation in 2 parts. So if you already know what part 1 is, and you just want to fast forward and know what to do in level 2 here, and you've already know level 1, that's part 1 that I'm going to give now. At the end of this video, I'll give part 2 where I go into tremendous details as I did in level 1. So we're going to stand with the feet parallel and hip width apart. Then during the squatting motion of the deadlift, we're going to make sure that the patella tendon stays in line with the second and third toe, and we're going to keep the pelvis neutral throughout. If you have an anterior pelvic tilt, you're going to try to go a little bit more towards posterior so that your pelvis stays neutral. If you have a posterior pelvic tilt, naturally, then you're going to try to go a little bit more towards anterior so you have a little arch in the back and your pelvis stays neutral. During the squatting motion, you're going to keep your pelvis aligned, and as you remember from level 1, we're going to be drawing the transverse abs in when? At the 50% mark of descent, all the way down to the bottom. Once you hit the bottom, we're going to do 2 things on the way up. We're going to keep the transverse abdominal contraction for the first part, and the whole way up, we're doing a thoracic alignment breathing exhalation. So while you're standing up, you're exhaling strong, extending that thoracic spine as much as you possibly can, keeping the ears in line with the middle of the shoulder, and pulling downward simultaneously on the anterior rib cage. Not enough to cause rounding in the thoracic spine, but enough to extend that thoracic spine. And if we're doing this with the bar, as we are in level 2 here, then we are going to let the bar stay sliding on the legs. It's really best to do deadlift when you're going to do deadlifts, wear pants, because the ideal way to keep the leverage and excessive strain off the back is to have the bar actually gliding and staying touching the skin or pants or touching your actual legs during the motion. You want to lean over more than a squat so you can really stick your butt back. Good. And when you're pulling, let's pause on the bottom, Matt. When you're pulling, you're not feeling like you're pulling up. You're actually going to feel like you're pulling this way. Go ahead and stand. You're feeling like you're pulling backwards, where if you didn't have a weight, you'd maybe even fall backwards. You're driving in the hips. Let's do one more. You're driving in the hips, contracting the glutes, driving, so the pressure of the hip musculature is going to go this direction, and the pressure of the upper body is going this. So upper body has an angle like this, and the hips have a pressure. So the force vectors look like this. We're coming up with the upper body and driving the hips forward, which simulates together that feeling like you're pulling the bar this direction, okay? So now the details. The second part, if you don't know, so if you already do know all those things, awesome, you're good to go. Go make it happen, have fun. If you don't know all the details from level 1, let's go through that. So in detail, a little bit slower now. Feet are hip width. Feet are totally parallel. During the squatting motion, again, patella tendon must stay in line with the second and third toe. No valgus, no excessive varus. Pelvis stays neutral. And quite more slowly, I'm going to tell you the same thing as I did in part 1. But what you're doing is you're drawing in the abdomen with a transverse abdominal contraction from the pubic bone all the way up to the lower rib cage. You're sucking in as tight as you possibly can, starting at, so you're going to keep really good alignment. So that whole first half is going to have the back aligned, pelvis neutral, ears in line with the middle of the shoulder. But at the 50% point of descent, you're going to suck in as tight as you possibly can. Draw in the abdomen, come down, come down, come down. Good, and you're going to keep that on the first 50% of the ascent while you do something called thoracic alignment breathing exhalation. Good. Let's go ahead and just hang out there for a moment. So what you're doing is drawing in, transverse abdominal contraction, drawing in, drawing in, drawing in, and then as you come up, what you're trying to do is you're trying to extend that thoracic spine as much as you possibly can while simultaneously pulling down from the anterior rib cage. So it's almost like you're fighting yourself, right? Because the goal here is like you're trying to extend that thoracic spine like this bar. straight as much as you possibly can. But you don't want to do it so much that you arch your lower back excessively, which is really bad. So to eliminate that, what you're doing is you're pulling down from the anterior rib cage, which keeps that perfect alignment and draws in all the stabilization musculature of the spine. For the thoracic spine, for the lumbar spine, for the pelvic floor muscles, everything gets involved by doing it this way. And that's the details of how you would do a cable resisted deadlift level 2.